only on 933 KFM.
Welcome back to this edition of the 933 KFM Hot Seat. And our guest tonight, we have Daniel Batidam. He's Executive Director of the African Parliamentary... I need to read this properly. African Parliamentarians Network Against Corruption, APNAC, and Gerald Karhanga, who's the chairperson of the Ugandan chapter of APNAC. And we're discussing members of parliament and their fight against corruption on the African continent. Can they actually fight corruption? Bernard, let me turn to you for a moment. If you see how politicians behave, they give the same excuses across the African continent, that they are kind of microfinance institutions. I don't know how many requests Karhanga receives from representing 18 districts of young people in this country. 26 districts of young people in this country. He's said that he's going to get the 103 million. I think he's received it already. And he's going to buy an ambulance for Kiriandongo district, which doesn't have an ambulance. But when you take the ambulance there, how do you guard against it being used to ferry charcoal, to ferry matoke, goats and sheep in the village? Two, how do you guarantee that it will have the fuel and that the fuel will not be stolen? That's one challenge.
Apparently, even poachers are using ambulances.
Exactly.
You get an animal, put it in an ambulance, and through the park gate, and, emergency.
It's the best way to smuggle, even here if you're driving some kind of a government vehicle here. Now, can these members of parliament who claim that they help their constituents with all manner of problems, they demand the emoluments to justify that? They demand for a bigger car because they say this is the village car, the car in which the village takes pride, or the entire district or constituency. Are they the kind of people? Don't they need to relook at how they approach this fight against corruption?
Well, I think, like Daniel said, they are part of the problem and they have to be part of the solution. I think that's interesting, because you're not going to import people. You're not going to get some aliens from Mars and bring them here. It has to start somewhere. It's because in Parliament, 100 people. I don't want to think that all the 400 are, hopelessly corrupt. There must be a few people there who, and I'm not going to say that they should be 100% clean, but, a little bit, because I think there are two things that can help this. One is then for those members who are committed, because there are some clean members, generally clean, going by our standards, but who may not be interested in taking on this fight, don't want to be identified with, this group. But there are those who are generally clean and want to. So I think number one is that to be able to be vocal about the things, you need to be, don't want to have too many skeletons, because that will undermine your case in case you're found out. Two is, I think, then to do the kind of research I think that Gerald is referring to, that they're trying to do, is be systematic. And before you come on the floor, you have you're on firm ground, and I think that will help them a lot. And I think in Uganda right now they have a lot going for them. What attracted the attention, everybody's now focused on corruption, what's going to happen, because everybody, for example, is waiting to see what happens tomorrow in the NRM caucus. Is it today or tonight, and then tomorrow is the plenary. The matter goes to Parliament regarding the governor of the central bank. So my sense is, it has to be, and I think that's how change occurs. People within us, who just say enough is enough, and we have to turn a leaf, and and then just be diligent about it. And I think that's the way to go, really.
Daniel, let me come back to you. You said you want the commitment. Yeah. But that commitment, if you came to the Ugandan experience, you can feel a 10,000-page book with statements of commitment. One of those most pronounced was in 2006 during the swearing in of the president. Zero tolerance to corruption. This government will be committed. Zero tolerance to corruption. You go back all the way to the 10-point program 1986, actually drafted a little earlier before these guys came to power. Fighting corruption was one of the key. And then along the way, you begin finding some justifications. At least the people stealing the money now are investing it here. And then you hear people telling you, no, it's not that corruption is too much. It is that it's being exposed. How does APNAC, for example, help in a situation like that?
Well, it's a bigger question than APNAC, but they have a role, and that is what I keep saying to them. The whole issue of corruption is more complex than pointing fingers at individuals. It's sometimes about a network, an embedded network of all kinds of people, including politicians. But I'm not going to defend anybody here, and I think it is a challenge that MPs who say they are members of APNAC have taken upon themselves, and we should pat them on the back. But it is not about talking, as you have said. And mind you, let me be clear about this. This issue of talking about fighting corruption and not walking the talk is not in Uganda alone. We have had the declaration of zero tolerance for corruption in Ghana. In fact, virtually 50 countries, when people go for elections and leaders come on board, the next thing is to declare war against corruption. But, you know,
there's been a lot of declaration of war against
corruption. So we are all saying, please, enough of the declarations. We want you to walk the talk. We want you to do what you are supposed to do. And Bernard, if I got the name right, said it well at the beginning. I tell you, nobody can do it alone. Even the politicians need the help of citizens. They need the support of the public. And by this, I mean that if you talk about all the pressures that individuals, citizens bring on politicians, you ask yourself, is that a fair way to demand accountability from your representatives? Honorable Karuhanga just said he is going to take his 103 million to buy an ambulance. I am saying that, well, that is his prerogative, and this is not something every MP is going to do. And I have always said the formula for corruption that I have been sharing around is that corruption is equal to monopoly plus discretion minus accountability. Anybody that you give monopoly of power to and the discretion to use that power the way he or she wants without being accountable is already in the potential to become corrupt. So I'm saying that maybe it is not so much a matter of asking for more Karuhangas to use their money, their 103 million to do something like buying an ambulance. It is perhaps more important to say that, well, let us not give the monopoly of these resources to a small group of people because they can use it properly or not. Let us rather determine what our priorities are and do the allocation in that regard. So I would say maybe the MPs, the politicians are also saying we are trying to respond to all kinds of demands. And I would say this involves looking at the system. Should we not have a system? And I tell you, all over the world, it is the same thing. It's about good and bad systems, not good and bad people. Because if you go into a system which has the kind of
people make the systems,
yes,
or destroy the system.
Exactly, and the kind of societies we have. If the perception about the politician is that he is supposed to provide the ambulance, he is supposed to provide this and that, I would say no. Honorable Karuhanga, you don't need to buy an ambulance for we won't give you the 103 million, even though you have a good intention. We will allow the society through other institutions, public interest institutions, to determine how best to provide these public needs. And not that at your discretion, because you happen to be a committed APNAC member or chair, you will use it for the public good. How about those who may not use it that way? So I will say, you know, we got to work on our systems. We got to determine how the checks and balances, what are our priorities as a society? And Bernard said it, what is the role of the society in determining that those they have elected, like Honorable Karuhanga, are preoccupied with what they want them to be doing? And is their preoccupation to be collecting more money and use which they will now use their discretion how best to use it in the interest of the people? Or we should say, no, you don't need all that money. We will provide you with the things you need to be able to do your work, and that is it. Because when the MPs demand more money, what they say is that, you see, we have to go long distances, travel all rough roads, and when we go to the constituency, the people are asking for medical bills, they want school fees, and all these things. So they say they are responding to pressures. I call them excuses. But
excuses.
Yes,
just
but they are excuses.
Rightly put there.
But they are excuses which are given to them by the people.
Are they actually given to them by the people? Or do these politicians play actual politicians, keeping those excuses alive so that they can justify their demand for more money?
There are two sides to it.
Can we come back to that after a short break?
It's live, it's hot, provocative, and digs deep into the issues. It's KFM.